What's up, everybody? Michael Walsh here. So I want to talk about Alexandre Pantoja and the very strange situation he finds himself in terms of his legacy, in terms of his status, not only in like the all-time GOAT discussion, but his status in terms of the flyweight GOAT discussion, because there's a lot of things to unpack here, and there's a lot of erroneous things that I see a lot of people believe that need to be corrected right now, because I've seen people say he's the greatest flyweight to ever live. And I've seen people like rank him as high as top 10 in the all-time GOAT list. Both of these things are fucking crazy. I don't want to get too deep into the weeds with Mighty Mouse's resume because, for one, I've done that in the past, and you can look up some of my old videos if you want to hear more. But also, I'm going to do an updated GOAT list video sometime early next year, so I'll probably rehash it all then, so I'm not going to do it all here as well. But there is no chance in hell that Alexandre Pantoja is a better flyweight than Mighty Mouse, okay? And it's not merely the number of title defenses, it's also the quality of the wins. And again, I'm not going to go into all the details, but all you really need to know is that Tim Elliott is considered possibly Mighty Mouse's worst title defense. And Tim Elliott, some 10 years after losing to Mighty Mouse, just recently defeated Kaya Sakura, who is not only much younger than him, but is one of Pantoja's title defenses. So that alone should tell you something about the quality of the competition 1-to-1. So even if you want to be generous and say Mighty Mouse was fighting in an equally good talent pool as Pantoja, then still 11 title defenses to 4, speaks volumes. And not only that many title defenses, but look at how he's beaten everyone. He's not only decisioning people, but he's knocking them out with punches. He's knocking them out with knees to the body. He's submitting them every which way. Pantoja doesn't have that variety. He doesn't have that breadth of skill. It's just, he's not on that level, okay? Now, more controversially, I think, is going to be my claim that Figueiredo is actually the clear number 2 flyweight of all time. And that's kind of what is inspiring this video, because I'm wondering what Pantoja needs to do to correct that, because my argument largely rests on the fact that Figueiredo beat Pantoja in his prime. And that's what people care about these days, right? And that's why people are able to even make the argument that Max Holloway is a better featherweight than Jose Aldo, is because Max beat him twice in his prime. Who cares about the length of the title reigns and stuff like that, and how young Jose was when he became champion. Who cares about the fact that Jose was literally a fucking champion in the WEC before Max or Volk even had their first fights? Who cares about that? All we care about is that Max beat Aldo twice and in his prime. And that's a fair point, because given Aldo's success later on, given his longevity, and given the fact he was still in his fucking 20s when he lost to Max twice, I think it's fair to say that was his prime still, even though he'd been in the game longer and had come from a previous generation. Now, circling back to Figgy and Pantoja, Pantoja was in his prime when he lost to Figueiredo, and Figueiredo, I'd argue, proved he was the better man against Moreno. Because those are the 3 champions that really kind of matter to this conversation, because we have Cejudo, who's kind of an anomaly. He beats Mighty Mouse in a controversial split decision. When I watched it live, I assumed the judges were going to give it to Mighty Mouse, but I was okay with them giving it to Cejudo. And then he has a title defense against a deflated TJ Dillashaw, he catches him early, gets kind of a flash knockdown, quick stoppage, and then moves up to bantamweight. So he's sort of a weird anomaly as a flyweight champion. But really, the post-Mighty Mouse era consists of 3 reigns: Figueiredo, Moreno, and now Pantoja. And of the 3 of them, Figueiredo beat Pantoja, and whilst he ultimately came out on the losing end against Moreno, I'd argue he was the better man, because their first fight was a draw, but pretty much everyone thought it should have been a decision win for Figueiredo. He loses the rematch, wins the trilogy fight, and by the time they have their 4th fight, he's out of his prime. And yeah, Moreno wins it, but you can just watch the first fight and watch the 4th fight and just tell me that's the same Figueiredo. It is not. He's lost a step by that point, because he's the considerably older of the two. And so when he still had it, he won the trilogy. Like, to me, he was the better guy of the two. Moreno, of course, lost multiple times, 3 in total if you count the Ultimate Fighter, to Pantoja, and Pantoja lost to Figueiredo. So, Figueiredo, effectively proved that if he's in his prime, Moreno's not champion, and Pantoja's not champion. And Figueiredo has an underrated title reign because of kind of the asterisks involved, because he fought for the belt against Joseph Benavidez, and he missed weight by a little bit. But because of that, even though he finished Benavidez, he didn't actually get the belt. He wasn't eligible because of the weight miss. They have a rematch for the still vacant belt. Figueiredo makes weight, finishes him again, boom, he's the champion. He then instantly submits Alex Perez, and then he has the draw with Moreno. So if he hadn't narrowly missed weight in the first Benavidez fight, and if the draw against Moreno were more correctly scored as a decision win, he would have had 3 title defenses, But as it stands, he has 1 defense and the draw retention, and then he wins the belt back. But 3 title defenses is only 1 away from Pantoja, because Pantoja now is at 4 because he has it against Royval, against Usyk, against Asakura, and against France. And 4 is better than 3, but it's pretty fucking close. Nevertheless, even if it's only 3 defenses, again, Figueiredo wins it back. So he's got that 5th title fight win by winning the belt back against Moreno. Now, what does Pantoja need to do to kind of climb out of this hill? Because he's never catching up to Mighty Mouse. He's too old. Mighty Mouse was too damn good. The variety of opponents that Mighty Mouse defeated was too varied. Mighty Mouse is, spoiler alert on my GOAT list video a little bit, but Mighty Mouse is not only top 5, he is top 3, okay, all time. And Pantoja just can't do that. He's already in his mid-30s. There's not enough time left. He's not on the cusp of that the way someone like Islam is, the way someone like Merab is. He's just not there, okay? Now, bear in mind, I'm speaking as a Pantoja fan. I was a fan of his before, he kind of caught on in the broader fan community. I like Flyweight. I remember saying during some of his initial defenses when people were starting to complain about, they always go the distance. I was talking to my buddy once. I was like, these fights are just always good. Whether it's Moreno, Royval, whether it's Pantoja against either of those guys, whether it's Figueiredo, and any of those top flyweights, they just always have fun scraps. And yeah, it often goes the distance, but so what? It's a great 5-round fight is a great fight. What's wrong with having more of a good thing? So I always liked Pantoja. I like that he's relentlessly driven and determined. He's got that sort of never quit no matter what, always giving it 100% sort of competitiveness that I really like in a fighter. It's the same thing you saw from Michael Bisping, from Volkanovski, from Usman, from Dominic Cruz, Frankie Edgar. I like that kind of competitive drive, and Pantoja has that. So I'm a Pantoja fan, and I want him to keep winning. I hope he beats Van this weekend, and I hope he just keeps racking up defenses because I like him. Now, what does he have to do though? Because again, like I said, his current streak of defenses, especially when you consider that Asakura, kind of a shitty defense, Usyk, kind of a shitty defense, and that's half of his defenses. He's up to 4 now, and that's very good, but again, if we kind of view Figueiredo's reign more generously and treat him as effectively having 3 defenses, that's only 1 more than him anyways. And some people might object to me doing that, but we all kind of do that. We all think that when Oliveira had that weird weight scandal when he fought Gaethje, we all thought that was bullshit. We count that as a defense. We all got on the there is a champion and he's Oliveira, right? And granted, that was clearly kind of a bullshit situation, whereas Figueiredo did just miss weight. But to miss weight narrowly and then just rematch the guy, make weight, and kill him twice over, he effectively has 3 defenses. It's kind of again, it's not as unfair as this, but it's similar to Robert Whittaker. Robert Whittaker fought Yoel Romero for the interim belt. And the reason there was an interim belt was because Bisping was fucking around and fighting Dan Henderson and fighting George St. Pierre. and avoiding guys like Whitaker and Romero. They have a rematch, and Romero misses weight, and I even checked Wikipedia, and I don't know if this is true or not, or if they changed policies or what, but like, apparently the rematch was like a non-title bout because Romero missed weight, which shouldn't be the case because it should be a defense for Whitaker no matter what. And Romero just shouldn't be eligible for the belt, and I don't know if they changed policy on that sense or if that's just Wikipedia being it wrong. My memory of it had been that it was for the belt, and that by winning that he had been like anointed the undisputed champion rather than the interim champion. But in any case, it's currently like he's currently not listed as having a title defense, even though he beat Romero for what should have been the belt, and then he defended it against Romero, and he didn't miss weight. Romero missed weight. So like Whitaker should have a title defense, but he doesn't. You know, and I think it's not as unfair as that with Figueiredo. I mean, the draw against Moreno is kind of bullshit, but like all in all, though, like just like we look at those guys as, you know, we look at Whitaker as effectively having a title defense. We look at the Gaethje fight as effectively a title defense for Oliveira. We should look at Figueiredo as effectively having had 3 title defenses, losing against Moreno in the rematch, and then winning the trilogy. Yeah, that should be how we look at that. And when you do that, like, yes, Pantoja is ahead numerically a little bit, but not enough to, I would argue, not enough to actually be considered the greater flyweight. Not be enough to, like, either just looking at the flyweight discussion or looking at the GOAT discussion. Because when I made my top 20 GOAT list video over the summer, I had Figueiredo at, I think, 19. And Pantoja just didn't make the cut. He was close, but he didn't make the cut. Now, what if Pantoja keeps winning? What if he beats Van? Now all of a sudden he's got 5 title defenses. And that's a lot. Like, if you look at all the champions in the history of the UFC, that's a lot. You know, that's a lot for any division. And what if he wins 1 more? Now 6. That's Adesanya. That's rare company. That's Tito Ortiz. That's, you know, that's a rare list of people. And what if, you know, just imagine, what if he wins 1 more than that? You know, which isn't unthinkable. If he like runs over Van, he's just got to fight twice in the next year and not fucking like, you know, not age out so poorly that he's prevented from doing that or gets caught or something. And boom, now, you know, 6, 7 defenses. And sure, this is counting your eggs before they hatch, because he's only at 4 right now, and Van might just knock his ass out on Saturday, in which case this will all, you know, be lost in the wind. But it's not unthinkable that, you know, 10 months from now, he's got 7 defenses. That's I'm not sure I'd bet on that, but like that's not an unrealistic outcome. And at that point, what's he got to fucking, you know, like when does he come out from underneath Figueiredo's shadow? You know, and it's a real question, because if you say he does, then why is Jose Aldo stuck under Max? And some people don't think he is. Some people argue that Jose is still the best featherweight to ever live, and there's an argument for it based on just the reign. And this is just where you can't, you know, it's just what value you place on different criteria. Because, you know, do you count like the streak and the reign and the title defenses, or do you count who beat whom and in their prime? You know, who proved they were the better man against each other? And maybe the solution is that this all just boosts Figueiredo as well. Maybe Figueiredo stays ahead of him, you know, but they both climb the rankings. Maybe Figueiredo shouldn't be at 19. Maybe he should be pushing top 10. And maybe Pantoja should be in that top 20, you know, in that scenario. And that'd be okay. I mean, you know, it's okay if you never catch up to Mighty Mouse if he's like the 2nd greatest fighter to ever live. And it's okay if you never catch up to Figueiredo if he's like number 11 and you're stuck at like top 15 still. That's not a bad place to be, you know. And I'm not saying that that'll necessarily be how it plays out if Pantoja gets those additional 2 or 3 title defenses, but that would be the kinds of things we'd have to consider. And it kind of adds an interesting flavor to the weekend, because it's similar to how I made a video about the Islam fight, ahead of his match with JDM, where I was like, depending on how this plays out, it's like really unclear where both guys stand in terms of their legacy. You know, it was mostly talking about Islam, but in any case, I said, like, shy of Islam winning and retiring there on the spot, we just don't have closure. And that's still true because I don't currently have Islam as the GOAT. I think he's certainly gone up a few spots because of his win over JDM. I've said that if he defends his belt against one of the top contenders at welterweight, like against Gary or against Shavkat, I would consider him the GOAT. But he hasn't done that yet, and that's still up in the air what he's going to do. And if he defends it against Ilya, or if he defends it against Usman, I'm not going to give him the GOAT status. Like, it'll help him, but I'm not going to give it to him. So that's still up in the air is my point. And it's the same feeling going into this Pantoja fight on Saturday, where, if the only, like, kind of sure outcome is if he loses. Because then we'll just say, or I will say anyways, like, yeah, he wasn't as good as Figueiredo. He wasn't as good as Mighty Mouse. He's staying out of the top 20. Like, he's a great fighter. I love the guy. He's still the third best flyweight champion, and that's great. And he's still like a top 30 fighter of all time. But he's stuck there. Now, if he wins, maybe he cracks that top 20 a little. Maybe Figueiredo gets a little bit of a boost too. I'd still say he's behind Figueiredo with a win on Saturday. But you have to start wondering. And it leaves that open door, much the way there's an open door for Islam to, like, go fight Gary or Shavkat. There's an open door for Pantoja, if he beats Van, to win one or two more, and all of a sudden, that's big. That's big for his legacy. And again, that's for a guy his age, you can't just assume that shit'll happen. You can't just start talking as if that's already the case. Just look at what happened with Tyron Woodley. People were considering him the second greatest welterweight of all time ahead of Matt Hughes. Some people were saying he was, like, on the verge of usurping GSP. Of course, bullshit in hindsight. And as soon as he lost, they reneged on the number 2 spot. They were back to putting Matt Hughes there. And now they consider Usman number 2, Hughes 3, and Woodley 4, most people. And, that can happen. What if Pantoja gets nuked this weekend? And what if he goes on to lose twice after that? What are people going to think? The same people who are championing him, putting him in top 10 of all time, they're not going to keep him there. They're going to retcon it. So we'll see. That's like the only, again, much like Islam winning and retiring was the only outcome to that fight that could have given, like, immediate closure and immediate finality. The only outcome like that really will be if Pantoja loses. And not only lose it, he'd have to, like, lose and retire, I guess, because he could come back. Like, he could do a Figueiredo thing. He could lose to Van and, like, win a rematch, or he could lose to Van, win a fight, beat whoever's the champion. Like, who knows? Like, you never truly know. And granted, I mean, there's no limit to that sort of thinking because, Islam could win and retire and then come out of retirement. Who knows? Khabib could come out of retirement, Khabib could rematch Conor at the White House, I doubt that will happen, but it could happen. So, realistically, the surest thing, the most, like, conclusive outcome would be Pantoja losing on Saturday. But if he doesn't, and I'm picking Pantoja to win. So if he wins, there's a lot on the table for him. There's a lot on the table in terms of the all-time GOAT discussion and in terms of making an argument for usurping Figueiredo as number 2. I won't give it to him, at least not with that one win over Van. If he can get a few more, then maybe I'll consider it. But, like, as it stands, Figueiredo is the underrated number 2 flyweight of all time. And I'm a big Figueiredo fan. And I think the fact that he did that and won the belt back against Moreno, the fact that he then went up to bantamweight and had a lot of success, the fact that he won last month as, like, a 38-year-old dude or however old he is, fantastic. So, like, I think Figueiredo's very underrated himself. And so it might sound like I'm shitting on Pantoja. It's just that I think Figueiredo's better, and I think Figueiredo's underrated. But in any case, I'm very interested because I think it's doable. I think, again, 10 months from now, 7 defenses, it could happen.